Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Loan Officer Life, Hustle, Heart, and Home Ownership. I love saying that. I am joined today by Devin Dubuc. Devin is the National Sales Director at Premier Lending, which is awesome, and we're going to talk about that. But I've gotten to know Devin through a couple different communities that we both exist in, and just love the way you think, Devin. So I was excited to have you join me here today on Loan Officer Life.
Well, I love a great collaboration, Brian, in hustle, heart, and home ownership, man. Who doesn't love that, right?
Right.
I'm honored to be here with you today, and it's great to share those communities. I think that's a big part of what helps people succeed today in this space. There was a lot of uncertainty over the last couple of years, and hanging out with other great people, right? I think I said it yesterday, in a room full of goats, right? The greatest of all time in this industry, and sharing our success stories and techniques together is really what helps propel people and keep people moving in the right direction. So, I appreciate what you're doing here too, brother, because, again, having that platform for people to speak out and help empower others with great collaboration. This is what our industry needs right now. And I love that you're doing it, brother.
Oh, likewise. And thank you for that. I think back because I would say in the last 18 months, I've been much more intentional about getting into communities like the Redder Morning group that Scott runs, which is awesome. And I'm 57, so I've been at this quite a while, right? And I'm like, why did I wait? Why am I just actively seeking out these opportunities and getting engaged now? And I don't know the answer to that question, by the way. I think there's a lot of people that probably are in a similar spot where
Couldn't agree with you more.
We get stuck in our own ways, and I'm loving learning from different people and different mindsets and different business strategies, and so I'm just thankful to have being invited to some of those groups.
Agreed. Well, I got to tell you, I'm 48 years here and, been in the industry for 23 years. And at the same time, I ask myself the same thing, but I say this all the time, Brian, we hear things when we're ready to hear things.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that also goes without saying, we do things when we're ready to do things, and, there's been a lot of struggle in this industry over the last couple of years. And I think that's where a lot of us have stepped up and said, you know what, man, we got to do something about this, because people can have success even in a difficult market, right? And I can't say a high rate market because this isn't a high rate market. It feels that way to a lot of people. But, if you're from, the previous years in this industry, rates in the sixes are actually great rates. In fact, when I got into the industry back in 2002, the rate, we were at a refinance boom, and the rate at that time was 6.5.
Yeah.
We dropped down to 5.5, and it was just like, drinking through a fire hose, right? And then you flash forward to markets like 2020, 2021, and part of 2022. And we have this unrealistic expectation as to what a market should really look like. And I think that's what scared a lot of people. So, it's kind of forced folks like you and me to step out and say, hey, guys, what we saw before wasn't normal. And, what we're having to do now is really get after it and work harder and have strategies in the way that we do business. And here, let me show you the way, right? Like, let's show you what we're doing over here so you don't have to struggle right now.
Oh, yeah, I love that. And it is all about perspective. And so I wrote my first loan in 1991. The par rate on an FHA 30-year fixed rate was 10.5. And we were doing streamlines back then, refining people that were 13, 14, 15%, into a 10.5.
Wow.
So it is all relative. It's all about perspective and where you've been, what you've seen.
It is.
So I'd love your thoughts on this. I think I know the answer. That's why I'm asking the question probably. So we talked about these communities, these groups, these masterminds that are happening all over the place. It feels like in the last 4 months or so, some of the best strategies that are being shared in these communities are like old school tactics, if you will.
That's right.
Like the one common thread that I keep hearing over and over and over and again is you have to have more conversations.
That's right.
And so it's like, it's like we're in this advanced technology age. Everything's AI. But at the
Right.
end of the day, to me, that one common strategy, that one common tactic, that one common thread is still communication and having more of it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, at the end of the day, let's go down that avenue a little bit. You talk about AI and what's happening with technology, and it's amazing. And we should all be in front of that, right? Because at the end of the day, we could utilize that technology to help strategize and get us more conversations, right? We just had a meeting with our sales team last week on this exact subject. And, one of the common questions was, who here wants to embrace AI? There was a lot of folks on the call that are old school guys that are saying, look, it's a little scary to me. And quite frankly, I think it's more about personal connection than it is about technology. And I said, look, you're not wrong, because here's what I believe, Brian. I believe that the big lenders out there are very close to cracking down on technology that can get a client qualified without ever having to have a conversation, right? Our credit reports today have access to not only the scores, but they have employment information, income information. With programs like Day One Certainty, we can see, what the asset verification looks like. And I think we're at a point where in the near future, and I can't tell you what date that's going to be, you could literally go online, fill out a form, and have an approval in seconds that's a real approval and pick your product. But that's not going to fix every client's solution, because there's a lot of other people out there that aren't going to fit into that box. And so that's where, getting really good about having conversations and making yourself visible in this space becomes really important. So how do you leverage that AI at that point in time? Well, let the AI help you get in front of more conversations, right? And this is what we're talking about is, yes, we don't want to come across with AI to answer our phone calls or to answer our texts. And maybe we can have a little bit of the text communication, but what does that text communication look like? Well, if you build a good marketing strategy inside, say, your CRM system, it's data mining for you in the background by sending out some campaigns where it is coming from Brian, right? Hey, it's Brian at fill in the blank company, right? Or, hey, Jim, just wanted to check in, see how life's been. Is there anything I can help you with? What did that do for you? It started the conversation on your behalf. It's still up to you to finish that conversation. So I think if you lean into AI as a conversation starter, this can help spiral more conversations, which in turn is going to keep you present in front of your sphere of influence. And it's going to keep you relevant when big banks come out and start bringing these products to market that allow people to literally click a button and get pre-approved, right?
Yeah, I love that. Another thought, or another way to utilize AI, because AI means there's a whole lot of disparity around what is AI, which tools are or are not AI. I was talking to a loan officer last week in my age range, and I wouldn't call him reluctant, but just unsure of where to go and how to leverage the tools that are out there. And so what we talked about was the fact that he's gotten into doing a lot of these screen share type conversations,
right?
Not, with referral partners and with consumers alike. And probably about a month ago, he started leveraging, the recording feature in whatever the tool he was using, whether it was Zoom or Teams or whatever. And I'm like, perfect. I said, here's how you should be thinking about AI. Take every one of those conversations, take the transcript, and create a thread with, create a couple threads. One thread for all of your realtor conversations, another thread for all of your consumer conversations. And now you start your AI starts learning about the problems you're solving in real time with a referral partner, with a consumer. And now you've got a month's worth of content that you can now access and ask your GPT or AI, whatever you want to call it, to create some social content.
That's right.
Leveraging real scenarios. Now you want to replace the name so that you're not necessarily calling somebody out, but it's another way to scale your ability to talk to more people.
Well, I think that's brilliant, because, what most people really want to hear is the behind the scenes stuff, right? When we get on, we give the canned information and, this is what, product we have to offer. No, we want to hear, how do we leverage that product to help somebody get into a scenario that they didn't think they could get into, right? Like,
Right.
that's what people really want to hear. And real time is what is really going to move the needle, because we're sharing a story about somebody that we know that this impacted. Hey, and if you fall into that situation, right, like so and so did, we've got a solution for you too, right? Hey, give us a ring. So now you're repurposing your conversations, like the one that we're having right now, right?
Yeah.
And just dumping those transcripts into your GPT, who's learning more about who you are, what you're about. And then you can even go in and you can train those GPTs how to actually frame the work for your videos or for the content that you want to put out there. I want it to talk like me. I want it to keep these under 1 minute. I want it to always share stories, right? And if you build a GPT out, I've got several of them, I'm sure you do as well, right? Where I can go in and I can just say, hey, Jake, give me a tip of the week, right? And it's going to spit out an answer with a tip of the week that fits my way of communication, so that when I go out and present it, it doesn't sound like a robot.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like I'm reading a cue card, because it's a real-time conversation that I have with somebody, and it's just resharing that story in a format that I don't have to think about, right?
And what's you bring up a good point. It doesn't look like you're reading a cue card, is what you said. And it doesn't, because you're actually saying words that you already said once before. And
That's right.
your brain already recognizes those words because they came out of your brain to begin with.
That's it.
It's
Well, and a lot of the times it's almost like a prompt, right? Have you ever written a script for yourself and you started reading it, you're like, I don't need this, right? Like, I
yes.
lived this. I'm just going to tell the story, right? And it's almost like, the movie where the guy's got the little cue card in his hand. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
going off script, right? I think that happens when you start to utilize this, because it's really just a prompt for the brain. And some people, when they see the camera lights come on, even if it's their own camera, they freeze, right?
Oh yeah.
So if you could take some of that element out of it and give them the initial conversation start, and it's like, I don't even need this. I'm just going to finish it on my own, right?
Yeah, I
But
love
it gave them
that.
the courage to hit the record button, and that's all they need to be doing is hitting the record button, because ultimately we can't talk to everybody, but we got to talk to our sphere, the people that we know. And so again, this goes back to leveraging AI. Make sure that you're building custom audiences in your social media feed with all the people that like, and trust, right? The ones that know, like, and trust you. They're not going to see everything that you put out, but if they're in the custom audience, they'll see 8 to 10% of what you're putting out there, which means that you're staying relevant in front of that sphere. And then you can also take a lot of those same clips that you post on social, repurpose those, drop them into an email, and send that out to your sphere as well, via your CRM system. So again, it's not canned, email that has, a paragraph about some new product that you put out. It's you
Right.
telling a story about somebody that you helped. And what's funny, and this happens to me all the time, and I'm sure it happens to you, is people that you don't even realize they're looking. One day you have a conversation like, I got to tell you, you said something one day and you told me this and it really resonated with me. And you're like, wait a minute, I said something. Yeah, well, I was watching your social feed, or I got your video email, and you don't even know that people are watching you. And I think, we're on that message, right, of, leveraging AI, but also understanding in your social media spheres, if you're not getting comments and likes, it doesn't mean that people aren't paying attention.
That's right.
And sometimes it feels like, oh man, nobody cares. I promise you, there's people out there that are listening. And when you end up having a conversation with them, you're going to be amazed at the things they know about you, because you're sharing it out there with the world.
Yeah, I love that. I was on a call this morning with a friend of mine, former colleague. He just opened a small mortgage company. He's a mortgage broker here in Michigan. And he's the reluctant guy to get on social, right?
Yeah.
And so about 3 weeks ago, I started seeing him posting videos on Instagram and Facebook. And they're authentic. This is what I told him. I'm like, Imran, what I love about what you're doing is it's you. I know it's you because I know you, and you're not trying to be somebody else, right? And so he's a very kind of matter of factual kind of guy. And so I said, well, how's it going so far? He's like, I'm getting more comfortable. He said, you know what? Yesterday I got a call from somebody I hadn't talked to in 4 years.
Yep.
Who didn't text, didn't email, but they called him and said, Imran, yeah, I saw your video over the weekend. I'm in the process of buying a second home. I'd love to talk to you. And so that was his aha moment of, had he not put a video out, which by the way, his video over the weekend had nothing to do with the second home, but the friend, the longtime friend who he hadn't talked to in a while, saw Imran talking about home financing
That's right.
and basically said, "Oh yeah, he's in the business."
Top of mind.
Would not have thought of him otherwise. And so for him, and that was like his aha moment where, and by the way, that guy never liked the video, didn't comment on it.
No clue you even watched it, But what else is cool about that is not only did he give him the the aha moment to have got a friend that's in this industry, right? But at the same time, it's making sure that people understand that you're an expert in this industry, right?
Yeah.
Because you're out there sharing stuff. And when they get to hear that you are at the top of your game, it's building trust, whether you know it or not. We had a guy, we did an interview on our podcast a while back. I've got a podcast called The Real Estate Success Partner, and he was a realtor out of Kentucky. And this guy was kind of a different caveat because he had started as a social media guy, and he got really well known for just being very raw and just delivering the raw facts about things that people sometimes are scared to talk about on his social platform. Had nothing to do with real estate. Well, a real estate company hires this guy and they said, "Hey, we'd love for you to help us build our social platform because you've got a lot of followers and we'd love to see, what you can do for us." So he starts doing it. And, he starts asking, "Well, what do you guys make when you sell, home?" Well, they shared that with him. He's like, "Oh, man, maybe I'm in the wrong side of the business." Right. So he gets into the real estate side of the business and has a record year right out of the starting gate. Why? He already had a channel full of people that trusted him.
Right.
And the moment that he said, "Hey, I'm engaging in the real estate space," they had so much confidence in who he was because he was telling it raw the whole time. All the stuff that you think you shouldn't be saying.
Yeah.
He was saying all that stuff, and they knew that he was honest. And that really moved the needle for him. So, again, it goes back. You don't know who's watching, but the people that are watching, if you're being straightforward, they're hearing that. And it's building trust in you every time that you post something. And that's what people want. They want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, they already know you. They probably like you.
Yeah.
But now they trust you, right?
And I think that in today's world, let's take a referral from an agent to a loan officer. So I'm the agent. I refer, my buyer, Sally and Bob, to you, Devin. Sally and Bob aren't just going to take my recommendation without doing some
Research.
level of diligence on you, right?
Guy?
And where are they going to go first? They're going to go to social.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? What's he talking about? What's he like? I'm this way. Like if I'm getting on a call with somebody, a video call,
yep,
I want to see what they look like before I get on the call. Right.
Absolutely.
So I go check them out on LinkedIn or whatever. And so
get to know them a little bit, know what they're about. Yeah.
So if you're not on social, it's almost, that's like the kiss of death today because you don't exist in that instance.
Well, I think that's such a relevant conversation, right? Because, we talked about it at the beginning. Let's talk about it again. We use a program called Redder. We're on the Redder Morning Show. And what Redder does is it leverages that data where you can find it really quickly. So, if they're a loan officer or a builder or a realtor, right, which is what most of us are interested in, we can literally pop on there. And within seconds, I can be on their Facebook, their Instagram, their YouTube, their LinkedIn, get to know who they are a little bit. Watch, are they present on social? What's important to them? And within 5 minutes, I can get to know enough about that person, right? That when we jump on the call, we can have relevant conversation, right? But to your point, I bumped into a local realtor here and pretty big team here in the DFW at a sushi restaurant. And, his family was there. His daughter was like making faces at my son, like, younger kids having fun.
Yeah.
And, eventually they're like, "Hey, what do you guys do?" "Well, I'm in mortgage." "Oh, we're realtors." Right. And so we had an exchange and I invited him to my podcast and I could tell he was a little reluctant. Well, when I went down, he did eventually book with me. When I went and sat down with him last week, we shot the podcast. We were talking. He's like, "Oh, I know what your house looks like. I know about all your social media. I know what your content looks like," because he was vetting me, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure if he was going to jump on my podcast and spend 30, 45 minutes with me talking about what he was going to do or what he's doing out there, that I was worthy of that conversation and that it would also align with his brand and what he was about, right?
That's right.
So I think that makes it even more of a statement. Hey, these people that you want to get to know, these people, not just the agents, but the clients too, they're going to look you up. what are they going to see? Right. And if it's just that you're a family man, that's great. That's awesome, because that builds trust too. Right. So you don't want to look like a billboard. It can't just be all mortgage, 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 mortgage. That's great. That does show that you're relevant in the industry, but you need to showcase who you are as a person as well. And let's talk about that. Even to the backdrops, what's behind you. I mean, Brian, I'm looking at your room and I can see a lot of the things that you're passionate about. You can see mine, same thing. That tells a lot about who the person is on the other end. Make sure that your presence shows who you really are as a person. And I don't know if that's a bobblehead of you, but that's definitely a bobblehead of me. So what does that say about us, man?
Yeah, it's maybe you got yours from the same guy I got mine from. Mine came from John Tallinger at Class Valuation.
Oh, that's killer. Mine was a gift from one of my employees.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So
John JT had a deal probably 8-10 years ago. And I was a lender then. So we were a client of Class Valuation. And that was his I think it was his holiday gift one year. Everybody got their bobblehead. It was cool.
It's meaningful,
Yeah.
It's meaningful. Let somebody know that you really care, let's talk about that too. If you're building partnerships with your clients or with your agents, a meaningful gift goes a long way, and it doesn't have to be expensive, right? If they love to read and they love to educate themselves, one of your favorite books, right, might be a great gift. Doesn't cost you a lot of money, but it moves the needle. And then, a little card in the back end that just says something playful about what you provided them. Those are the kind of things that, you want to do when you're building partnerships. Same thing with your clients. When you're closing loans, are you sending them a gift? Letting them know that you're appreciative of their business. We do cookies at contract. And then, the ones that I do, and they're not as personal as I'd like. I'd love to get to something more personal. We do polished jars at closing, because everybody's going to have a place in their house where they're going to want to wash their hands.
Right.
And,
right.
Why not have a really nice polished jar? Same ones I keep at my house. So it is personal from that matter, because if you come to my home, you're going to see them there. And I wanted to share something that I love about our home with the people that we serve. Right.
I love that.
These are success techniques that, you can utilize in today's world to really build long-term relationships, because that's what this is. This is a relationship-based business. And if you're doing it to be transactional right now, you're going to have a real hard time. And if you're trying to do it long-term, you're definitely going to have a long time, because people can sense that out, sniff that out, and they're going to go with somebody that they trust.
Oh man, I love that. So we're going to take that as our closing comment, but it's going to be the teaser for when I come on your podcast. So this is going to be one of those. This is the first episode of a 2-episode conversation.
Yeah,
and we're gonna continue it on yours, because
ABC.
I want to, when I come on, I want to extend our conversation and talk about what I call the oh my gosh, hybrid loan officer, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so that is the future, and we'll leave the audience with this. The future needs to start now. You need to start building now for your future. Devin, thank you so much for spending time with me on Loan Officer Life. I'm digging our growing friendship, and looking forward to joining you on your pod as well.
Same here. So let's leave them with a cliffhanger to be continued. And if you got to find that podcast, it's going to be the Loan Officer Success Partner. We're shooting that really soon. I'm sure Brian will announce it once it comes out. Oh, yeah. So come over to that side and hear the rest of the story. I love it, man.
All right, everybody, come back next week for our next episode of Loan Officer Life. And normally I don't know who the next episode is, but this will be a good one. The Mortgage Bankers Association kicks off their Mortgage Action Advocacy Week, and we're going to have Bill Kilmer and Jamie Lynch from the MBA on next week's show. It's a must listen to show. Bill's got some great updates on the trigger bill legislation. So come back for that. Again, Devin, thank you so much, man. Talk soon.
Appreciate you having me on.